The New Mexico Water Resources Research Institute, or WRRI, was founded in 1963 and authorized by the 1964 Water Resources Act. Its mission is to develop and disseminate knowledge that will assist the state and nation in solving water problems. The WRRI gave a grant to the Department of History to process the EBID records in 1984. At that time, their non-current records were sitting in a metal shed behind their headquarters, exposed to the elements and unorganized. After the records were brought to the Rio Grande Historical Collections, the personnel from the History Department began the task of processing them. Processing is what turns a set of records into an archival research collection. It includes several steps. The first thing that they did was to give the records the preservation care they needed by cleaning, unfolding as necessary, and placing them in long-term storage containers such as acid-free folders and boxes. This is one of the most obvious parts of archives work, but just as important is the work of arrangement and description. We archivists guide our work by a set of principles. A couple of these are original order and provenance. These are often used interchangeably or synonymously, but in fact they're distinct concepts even though they're closely related. Provenance refers to the individual, family, or organization that created or received the items in a collection. The principle of provenance dictates that records of different origins or provenance be kept separate to preserve their context. Maintaining records in original order serves two purposes. First, it preserves existing relationships and evidential significance that can be inferred from the context of the records. Second, it exploits the record creator's mechanisms to access the records, saving the archives the work of creating new access tools. Now, the original order, unfortunately, is not always possible to identify or even desirable to preserve. Sometimes it's more like an original chaos, and we don't want to preserve that. The people who processed the EBID records in 1985 found order and kept it as much as they were able to discern, but they also ended up doing a lot of their own arrangement according to the type of record that they could perceive and chronologically within those record types. Their work produced a finding aid, which we have used ever since. This finding aid includes a detailed list of the contents by the box and folder number, as well as brief overviews of each division they assigned. After the records were processed in 1985, an equal volume of records has been added to us over the years. In 2008, we began the work of processing these as well. With funding that we received through the EBID Board of Directors, we hired 2 students to help. In fact, they have done most of the work. Caitlin Atanasio is an English major who is graduating this year and going on to get a master's degree in library science from the University of Maryland's College of Information Studies. Her emphasis is archives, records, and information management. Cynthia Renteria is a graduate student in public history who has also worked within our department in another project related to current events along the border. The two have worked very well together and have gained a great familiarity with the records. They began by compiling a secondary research collection composed of newspaper articles, many from local newspapers, but some from newspapers around the country too. These date from 1897 to 1935. The finding aid just for this newspaper article collection runs to 40 pages. We hope that this may be used to help researchers gain a more detailed understanding of the district's origin and the more public facets of its history. After the students completed that task, they took a painstaking and detailed inventory of the newer records that we had brought in since 1985. We are currently in the stage of assigning these to an organizational scheme. Now, it won't be enough to simply add those to the existing arrangement and description. In fact, we're going to have to reprocess the entire collection. Now, we can build on the foundation that they gave us. It's very valuable. But we're going to have to redo the arrangement in a way that reflects the district's operational structure, their records management practices, which they have recently begun to use, and also in a way which serves the needs of researchers more intuitively and more invitingly, and which we hope will also make better use of current media. Customarily, we group archival research collections into series, usually based on divisions or departments in an organization, functions performed, activities of individuals, types of records, and so on. The arrangement done in 1985 doesn't really have series, or we could say it has far too many series. It has 70 individual units of description. One of our aims in reprocessing the records is to group them all into a manageable number of series, which will make more sense of them to the researcher. Here's the list of series as we currently conceive them. It follows the current organization of the district into 5 departments, as well as keeping maps and photographs separate. After the students completed the inventory, they began assigning the newer records to these series using spreadsheets. This is all done without physically moving any of the boxes or folders. Those stay on their spots on the shelves until we have their final order planned out for certain. Once that order, the intellectual order, is established, it will be time to begin putting the records physically into that order in folders, boxes, and on the shelves. When we do that, we will also write up a new finding aid. The finding aid traditionally includes not only the list of series and contents as we have seen, but also historical and scope and content notes. In other words, brief descriptions of the organization's history and of the records themselves, the events and actions they record, the dates they cover, their significance, and so forth. This new finding aid will replace the old one on paper as well as on the Rocky Mountain Online Archive. At that point, the EBID records will be considered fully processed according to our current practices. But we won't be done with them yet. For one thing, we want to prepare a new kind of finding aid that makes use of the power of markup languages to present an interactive interface to the user, offering access by multiple points. For example, a timeline outlining the major eras and landmark events in EBID's history. As you can see, a timeline has already been prepared, but we want to expand it and link the dates to file descriptions from those dates. At a recent meeting with Gary Esslinger, the treasurer manager for the district, he told us that many users of the records should benefit the most from being able to access them chronologically. We are not arranging the entire collection in a simple chronological order, so this will take a great deal of additional work, but it will be worth it. Secondly, we'll need to provide for the additional records which will come into the RGHC from EBID in the future. I need another drink. As I said before, the district did not Thank you for listening. If you would like to research these records or any other we have in the RGHC, or if you have any questions for me, I can be reached at the contact information shown on the screen.